Hello, I'm VR Critic and welcome to my review of Light Repair Team number 4 by developer Eerie Bear Games. You can buy the game now on Steam for $7.99 US or $8.79 Canadian. Let's have a look at what this affordable price can get us. Light Repair Team number 4 is a single-player puzzle game utilizing colored beams of light and reflections in three-dimensional space. There are currently 25 puzzles available, which are all open to you from the beginning without having to unlock them. Each numbered level increases in complexity and gives you more tools and game mechanics to work with. The primary and most basic tool presented to you are one-sided mirrors, which are used to redirect colored beams of light from their source to a designated colored receptor. Once all receptors in the level are met with their specified target color, the dark buildings in the surrounding environment have power restored to them, and you move to the next level. As the levels progress, receptors will require colors that aren't available from a direct source. You'll need to use lenses and prisms to combine or split light, where blue and yellow light beams combine to make green, or orange beams split to make red and yellow beams. Puzzles slowly raise their completion requirements and amount of obstacles to work around. And that really is the gist of it. The game won't take you more than a couple of hours to complete, but it will challenge you throughout the more advanced levels. Now let's dig into the meat of this game, and consider what you really get for the price. As I previously mentioned, all 25 levels are opened up to you without the need to unlock them. This really doesn't make sense to me, as this isn't the type of game where you would have any desire to play the stages out of order. Each puzzle is more challenging than the one before it, and with only 25 puzzles to choose from, there isn't a purpose in skipping ahead. When you load the game, you're dropped into a hub environment with numbered receptors placed around you, and a single red beam of light to reflect into the puzzles you wish to play. For what's practically the main menu here, the design is extremely poor. The level selection receptors are dotted around, slightly out of numbered order, and placed in no particular patterns. You're provided no indication on whether or not you've completed a stage, and you can't see what the stage looks like without having to load into it first. This is really bad for anyone who doesn't choose to beat the game in a single go, as you'll likely have forgotten where you last were. You'll be forced to load in level by level, inspecting each puzzle and finding if you recognize it or not. Hitting the menu button while you're in a level, one might expect to see a pause or options screen before them. Instead, it just brings you right back to the hub area, losing any progress you may have just made. Eerie Bear Games have stated they intend to release a patch to include a proper interactable menu to fix these problems, but until then, it sorely stands out and it needs mentioning. The game requires a minimum play space size of 2 by 2 meters, or 6.5 by 6.5 feet, which is slightly above the smallest space needed for general Vive room scale. Playing in room scale feels very natural, and works well for the environment. Most room scale games I've played so far either have you moving around quickly, or left in a larger virtual space to wander. The environments in Light Repair Team number 4 feel very well constructed for a natural feeling room scale experience. You have no rush to complete stages, and you're given plenty of time to relax and think about the puzzle you're playing and what you need to do next. To further this relaxing tone, the soundtrack is primarily made of subtle ambient music. While this may be peaceful and undistracting, it gets stale and as such isn't very memorable. As I was playing, I felt that some piano music, occasionally dropping in and out, would have suited the tone very well. Unfortunately, there are a few other things that may remove you from your state of peace other than the challenge of the puzzles. Grabbing objects and aiming lights properly is extremely finicky, especially so when aiming at receptors at longer distances. The developers have patched the game in attempts to help this situation, but I feel they're going about it in the wrong direction. Their current solution has been to make the controller movement smoother, turn beams of light more vibrant and less opaque, and make receptors glow brighter and spark more when you make a proper connection. I don't think there's a lot that this has improved, and what I suggest is rather than making things brighter, simply give them highlights in a different color. Currently, when you move to interact with an object, your controller has to make direct contact with it. Due to the object hitboxes being so specific, it sometimes takes a few attempts to properly grab something when you're moving around quickly. Adding a simple glow or highlighted border to the controller or object when you're in the right spot to interact with it would make things much smoother. As for when you're aiming beams at receptors, a thin oppositely colored border around the edge of the receptor to indicate it's being activated would be immensely useful. The current solution of simply making it glow brighter really doesn't help, especially with this generation of hardware that is prone to God rays from powerful lights. Perhaps even a very slight vibration of the controller would be practical practical too, if not at least an option for players to use. Levels could also use more indication that you've completed them when you're still in their stage. The only indication you're given right now is a small chime and the windows of buildings being lit up around you. While this is pretty, it sometimes isn't even noticeable, as the area around you is already very light to begin with. This can sometimes lead to frustration in later levels that rely on timing to move forward. Without any clear, immediate sign that you've succeeded, you're left holding your breath and hoping that you don't have to redo a section of puzzle because you had a beam of light ever so slightly off of its receptor. A basic symbol such as a plug and socket or lightning strike being placed on the wall that glows when you've restored power would make this annoyance easily avoidable. One more quick concern I have has to do with the moving parts you get later in the game. You often have to have a receptor that moves back and forth on a rail stop at the very edge of its path. The solution many are left with right now is stopping it inch by inch, seeing how far on the rail it goes before moving back. A simple indicator of a moving part's range of movement, showing its boundaries or limits, would be much appreciated. In terms of performance, the game runs steady for the most part, but isn't quite as well optimized as other VR games out there. There are no graphics or audio options available, since there isn't a game menu to begin with. With everything I've said taken into consideration, I would say this game is merely average for the cost. It provides a very enjoyable and extremely natural feeling room scale experience and hosts a good introductory set of puzzles. Sadly, it lacks everywhere else. The developers at Eerie Bear Games seem very enthusiastic in their development blogs and excited to expand the game with new content. They plan to make the game playable in any sized area, including the possibility of a seated experience. They've even recently released a patch that's made it specifically possible for future content expansions to be added more easily. They've also teased that they're currently looking into levels made specifically for cooperative play. What I personally advise of the developers is, before getting too ahead of themselves on the front of content, is to step back and give the game the serious amount of polish it really needs. Players won't have as much fun playing additional content if they're still having to put up with the game's current list of problems. I look forward to seeing what the future of Light Repair Team number 4 holds, and I encourage anyone to keep a close eye on it to purchase it at a later time. Thank you very much for watching, and please feel free to critique my critique in the comments or on Reddit. I appreciate all the feedback you leave, as it can help me improve my content. If you have a game you'd like me to look at, feel free to make a suggestion and subscribe to see it and more like this.